Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Silver Track Extra, where we give you the tools, tips, and tricks to improve your guard management, retain more customers, and gain the upper hand against your competitors. Here are your hosts, Chris Anderson and Johnny Page.
What's up, Silvertrack Nation? Johnny Page here and the legendary Chris Anderson on episode number 85. Well, we're going to answer the question that all of you have been asking. What smartphones, tablets, phones should we be buying for our security operation? We're going to cover the top 10 durable smartphones to use for your operation. We're not going to bore you to death and list out all 10. That's going to be available at silvertracksoftware.com/85. This episode is going to be kind of a two-part summary, I guess you could say. We're going to first talk about some things to look for in a smartphone. Of course, this is going to come down to preference, how much you want to spend, how durable it needs to be, how big the screen needs to be, the camera on the phone, all that. But then we're going to talk about some specifics on managing company smartphones, because that certainly presents its own challenges. And so let's waste no time getting into this. Chris, there's obviously a lot of headache around this, the process of sourcing and buying smartphones. What are some of the things right off the hand that you're telling our customers on a day-to-day when they ask you, hey, what kind of smartphone should I get? What are some of the things that they should be looking for in terms of sourcing their officers with a phone to use in the field?
Well, it's changed a lot now because everybody's carrying one, right? So we're even getting into what we've talked about before, maybe the bring your own device. When that's already been a topic that we talked about. But number one is, if you're going to go out and make a company purchase, make sure you get with your existing provider. You know, if you have Verizon or Sprint, they'll work with you. So don't go run out right away and just go get an account. Establish an account and tell somebody what your goals are and how many phones potentially you plan on putting on, so you can get really good pricing. Number two, make sure that you have a good carrier that has a good plan. Don't go out and get a kiddie phone from T-Mobile, even though T-Mobile's advanced quite a bit, right? So make sure you get good connectivity. And then number three, really critical, buy a decent phone. I see so many people go out and buy these little midget phones so they can put them in their pocket, but you can't even see the screen. So if you have an officer that's over 35, he's got a thumb as big as his toe, he can't even operate the phone, So You got to think that way. That's just a start.
Yeah, so some of the things that I would look for, and what I tell companies all the time, first off, a really neat strategy for getting the lowest price from your existing provider. First off, use AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, Cricket, whoever you have as your provider for your cell phones. Use them as the expert. Go to your existing provider and ask them, say, hey, this is a new software or new requirements that I have. I want to outfit my officers with smartphones, with data plans. I need something that's not going to break the bank. Have them give you the best pitch they can, and they'll give you a couple different phone options. They may bring some demos on site. They'll give you the best price that they can give you.
And also, hey, John, before I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just ran across this. Maybe you have. You got to be very careful where you go if you're a first timer, because a lot of these stores, what do they call them? Like franchise stores. They can't give you the corporate rates, right? Like when you go. So you got to be careful what store you go to.
Yeah, you don't want to go to a reseller.
Yeah, reseller. Yeah, that's what it is. You have to be careful of reseller. So I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good. So I would directly call Verizon, AT&T in your area, whoever it is in your area, and have a rep come onto the property. They'll send them out to your office, have them give you your best pitch. If you have your existing person, then what I would do is I would call the biggest competitor. So if you have Verizon, call AT&T, tell them what you have through Verizon, tell them their best possible price. AT&T will beat it, right? Or Verizon will beat it, because it's a highly competitive market.
Yeah,
so
good point.
They'll beat it and then take that lower price from AT&T back to your existing guy and say, hey, this is what I'm going to get if I change. Can you match this price? Now, you didn't have to go through the headache of beating the existing, or you didn't have to go through the headache of changing providers, but you used the competitive market to your advantage to get the lowest price. You saw what the market had to offer, and they come to you. So that's one strategy I recommend in doing that. The other strategy is buying cheap phones you'll end up paying for it in the long run. Right, you're going to end up between broken screens or phones that don't work or headaches of going out and fixing the issues. You might as well buy a quality product, because you don't have to have rework, right? Like going back into the field and figuring out what the problems were. So I would just buy a quality device that you know is tested, has great reviews online. There's a very cool resource called phonearena.com. That's where we've got this list of 10 durable smartphones to use for your operation. And so I would go there, compare side by side. If you're looking for rugged, you can type in, I'm looking for rugged phones. If you're looking for phones with extended battery life, which is also a concern, you want to look at that in the security industry. That may be what your priority is. Or maybe you want a very high quality camera. You're going to want to, you can do searches based on that. So do your homework, come up with the devices that you like, and then use the competitive market to your advantage. So, Chris, unless you have anything else to add in terms of purchasing a phone, a high-quality phone, a smartphone for your officers, before we change gears to managing the company phones, do you have anything else to add before we change gears?
No, get with not only your carrier, but get with your service provider. So if you're a SilverTrak user, you're not sure, give us a call. We'll give you some direction. The biggest thing is going to be on screen size. Don't think you have to go out and buy a $600 i6 iPhone to keep up to date. You just need connection to internet and a good screen, and you have to think about what your officers are going to do in the field. So if you buy them a really fancy phone and it's got a lot of cool things to look at, then chances are you're going to want to lock those down anyhow, right?
Absolutely.
So you want to be smart too. So.
Well, SilverTrak Nation, let's take a break and hear from our sponsors over at Paperless Proposal. We've all been there before. You put countless hours into a proposal, painstakingly nitpicked every last detail until you finally finish and click send. Then you spend the next several days thinking, did they get it? Did they like it? Have they even read it yet? Well, with Paperless Proposal, those worries are gone. Not only can you actually see when your prospect views your proposal, but you can see what pages they look at, how long they look at them, and who they forward the proposal to. All of these analytics help you gain valuable insight into how your prospective clients view and interact with your proposals, giving your sales team important data to close more contracts. So what are you waiting for? Head over to paperlessproposal.com/SilverTrak to get a free demo and take advantage of a special offer just for our listeners. Now, let's get back to our featured conversation.
So if you're using company phones, it's a perfect segue into managing the company phones. First off, when you set up the phone, I highly recommend looking into there's several smartphone management softwares or applications out there. There's free ones, and then there's very high-end ones where from a central location you can see the battery life on all your phones, the data usage from all the phones, what all the officers are doing on the phones. You can lock certain applications from being opened. So I would definitely recommend there's free ones out there, then there's more in-depth and expensive ones, but I definitely recommend locking what you don't want used on the phone. If you don't want the officer on Netflix or streaming music or watching YouTube videos, whatever it may be, playing Angry Birds on their phone, you're going to want to make sure you lock those apps so that the officer can't download applications and run up your data plan. So that's smartphone management 101.
Yeah, that's our biggest issue, by the way, John. Did you know that? There's a lot of it that I hear from guys just being able to manage their phone properly. They lose phones for like a couple months because one was in the drawer, right?
Yeah.
Somebody didn't, take the time to document where that phone was. So it's a big issue, you guys. So, you're going to have to just, take advantage and think of a good program.
I mean, there's very affordable programs out there that you can download an application on all your phones, and then you'll be able to see the GPS location of that phone at all times. You'll see the data being used on that phone. You'll see the applications, all that. It's basically enables you to track everything that happens on the company phone. When it's being used, is it being used off hours? Is it being used to call other phone numbers? All that good stuff in a really user-friendly environment. A couple of things that I would recommend. I would definitely have some sort of agreement when you're onboarding a customer, when you're putting them on, onboarding a new hire. In all of the papers that they sign, I would go over a phone policy with your new hires of what are company phones supposed to be used for, and then specific examples of what they're not to be used for, like browsing the internet, downloading additional apps, personal phone calls, text messages, and provide guidelines for when they're able to use these things and when they're not. And then I would also include what happens, the consequences for inappropriate activity or misuse of a mobile device. What are they, if they're in violation of those, what's the disciplinary action that's going to be taken? And I would just have this as a written agreement, they sign off on it, initial that they understand the rules, so that if there is ever an issue, you don't, any type of documentation needed as to whether or not they were in violation or insubordination. If you have to fire the officer for whatever they did, you want to make sure everything's properly documented. So some sort of smartphone or phone use, company property use agreement in the new hire packets would be a great idea.
Yeah, and if your policy is smashing their fingers if they lose one, take it and report it in real time. Take a photograph. Use a phone. Just kidding.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the SilverTrak does not endorse this behavior, right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So just providing guidelines, summarizing, and of course, if you're going to do the bring your own device model, which we've talked about, I think episode number 78.
You have to emphasize device. We didn't say bottle. We said device.
Yeah, bring your own device. It's not bring your own beer, just BYOD. Yeah. If you're going to do that, we had a great interview with Lawrence Borgens of Delta Protective Services on episode number 78, where he talked about how he is shifting to the bring your own device model, how he has avoided the additional costs of managing hardware and smartphones and company cell phone plans and data packages and all that, and how he did that in California, where normally you're going to have to pay or provide a stipend or something like that. So very cool. Check that out. That was episode number 78. Chris, anything else to add in regards to the type of company phones to be buying or how to manage company phones?
Well, just for my particular, I would stick to Android. And I think you can back me up on this. On the technology side, I think Android's... Now, I'm an Apple guy, and I think you are too, right, John? You're pretty strong with Apple, but Android seems to tendency to be a lot quicker with applications and speed. Would you disagree with that?
I would say if you're putting it out from cost perspective and locking down the phone, just minimal use of software like SilverTrak, or for just simple reporting phone calls, if you're going to go with a smartphone for the guards, I would do an Android, just because it's a lot less expensive to replace a broken phone. Great. Most of your managers, I'm definitely an Apple guy. I have a hard time fully endorsing Android for good.
Yeah, me too. For the listeners, I agree with you. But.
I do. I love that our software offers both, that we do both Android and Apple. So, and then definitely give it a look, the bring your own device model. We have a lot of companies that don't want to go that route, and so that's why we do episodes like these, answering questions of what smartphones should we be using. But the bring your own device model, I think if I was starting my own company, I think I would do the bring your own device method. Of course, I haven't actually put it into practice, so there's probably some headaches with that method, but I think there's going to be headaches no matter how.
They're carrying their own phone. We talked about that, John. They're carrying their own phone anyhow, so it's kind of a cool feature. I think I would probably do the same thing.
Yeah. What would you do, Chris, if you're starting your own company from scratch?
I would. I would set it up. I'd put it as far as like the uniform allowance that Lawrence did, because Lawrence did his homework, and trust me, we look at what Borgens did, and you have to understand he did it because of the pain. So he did his homework. He didn't just think of this one day and say, hey, I think I'm going to do it this way. He was missing his phones. Supervisors weren't tracking it. He actually had a phone that he reported stolen that he found in the drawer 3 months after he reported stolen, right?
Yeah,
because it was in the drawers. Dumb stuff like that. So, he put some time and effort in it. So you guys take a look at that podcast that we did. That's some good information there, and so I do the same.
Well, if you'd like access to the 10 durable smartphones for your security operation, the actual phones that we recommend, that Phone Arena has provided, definitely check out silvertraksoftware.com/85 for episode number 85. You'll see a full article there, and also some of the bullet points that we've highlighted here in terms of managing your company phones, and avoiding some of the headaches that can come with that process. So until next time, my name is Johnny Page.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
This was a SilverTrak Extra, and we'll talk to you on episode number 86.